Hi everyone. So I am Saaransh and I am a PhD student at the physics department in Brandeis University. And I want to thank you for letting me occupy your lunchtime to talk about my path in science. As Douglas Adams once said, time is an illusion, lunchtime doubly so. So let's start with me. And I was born in India and specifically in the northern region of India. Let me zoom in here and show you the beautiful geography of this region. You can see that it's bordered by the Himalayan mountain range. This is where the Mount Everest is. And from here, there emerge these big rivers that etch the fertile plains of North India and empty out in the Bay of Bengal. And if you see very closely in this region, you will see that there are these patches and then smaller patches and then even smaller patches. And these are the cities which have cleared out the greenery, and that's why we can see them. And I grew up in one of these patch called Ludhiana, which is about 200 miles from Delhi, which is the big patch here, which is the capital of India, which itself is about 800 miles from the Mount Everest. While I was in India, I used to think these are very large distances. But after coming to US, it just feels small because 200 miles is just the distance from Boston to New York, and 800 miles is the distance from Boston to Chicago. Now, let me give you a taste of what life was in a day of a North Indian boy. And since this is a time of summer, we used to get a lot of mangoes, and I would eat a pound of mangoes alone in a day because I love mangoes. But you have to be careful because there are monkeys and they will steal your mangoes. Um, Another amazing thing around this time would be this fun festival for kids, which is Holi. And here you get to throw colors and water and balloons at adults, and they cannot ground you. So it's fantastic. Sometimes you also get a chance to ride your pet elephant with your parents. I'm just joking. It's not my pet elephant. Um, so this was all fun, but I was a very, very shy kid growing up. And I would spend a lot of time just at night in a park stargazing. The view was not this great, but it was pretty good back then. And then I would spend a lot of time at home looking at space facts from this book and watching a lot of TV, where Morgan Freeman would tell us how to go through a wormhole. Well, I don't think he ever figured out how to go through a wormhole, neither did I. Um, so at this point, I thought that I wanted to study astronomy because it's cool. But it turns out life doesn't work that way always. So I ended up being in an engineering university called the Birla Institute of Technology and Science. And I started doing my major in mechanical engineering. I was very disappointed to realize that you cannot build the Iron Man suit doing mechanical engineering. So I switched my majors back to what I liked, which was physics. And I thought I could take this chance now to go back to doing astrophysics and doing research in that. So I approached a professor in astrophysics and tried to do something there, but it turns out it didn't work out for me a lot and I didn't like it anymore. So I didn't want to do it. And at this point, I was very lost in my life because I had lost something that I used to like a lot, and I had no idea what physics is or what anything is. So I want to take this time and take a pause here and show you some pictures and play a game about uh, things that you have to tell me if it's physics research or not. So let us start with the first picture. What you see here is something you might have seen every day in your bowl of cereal. You have some Cheerios in water and they are just floating to each other. What do you think? Is this physics research? Moving on, in the second picture here, I have a computer simulation of something that is a virus. and it's some DNA inside that, and the virus is trying to assemble and become a capsid. What do you think? Is this physics research? In the third example, here, I have a big arena of locusts just moving together and flying and jumping. And do you think this example looks like physics research to you? For the fourth example, I have a mold that grows in tubs and stuff. So here you have a picture of colored mold in a petri dish just growing. Do you think this is physics research? For the fifth example, I have another simulation of fishes just moving together in this ocean box and swarming. What do you think? Do you think this looks like physics research? And finally, for the last example, I have these cells of plants in which there are chloroplasts, which is what makes them green, flowing and swirling around inside it. Do you think this would account for some research in physics? So it turns out that all of this is actually physics research. All of these are examples of real papers that physicists have written about these systems. And this is where I started realizing after in my undergrad, doing a lot of courses and projects, that there's a whole domain of physics which is trying to understand very cool things like flow of sand, bacteria and viruses, animal herds and flocking, and plants. And I realized that, oh, this is interesting. And you can try to understand this thing where how did we go from on a planet of having no life to having iPhones? Or to say that we went from having boring, not alive things to having alive things, doing complicated things in complex networks. And this is the domain of soft matter physics, which is what I started enjoying a lot. So to go back to the picture, which was incomplete, uh, yeah, so to go back to the picture, which was incomplete, this is the field of soft matter, which I really liked, and I realized this is what I want to do. And from this, I went on to work on a project in after my undergrad in this place called International Center for Theoretical Sciences at Bangalore, which is in the southern part of India. And I was working on doing simulations of these very cool experiments on how do cells divide. Here you see in this movie that there's this one single cell with two proteins on the edge colored with pink and green, and the cell divides right at the interface where these two proteins are. And we were trying to understand how to model this. And I was working with Professor Vijay Krishnamurthy here and his group, and I had the most amazing time working at ICTS with my friends and colleagues who were very supportive and very passionate about science. And I realized that I can do PhD, and it's because of their support I realized that I could pursue a PhD in physics. And I was very keen on finding some place that feels the same way, where you have a loving and supportive environment. And this is what I brought me to Brandeis. A professor in my undergrad once told me that it does not matter where you dig. If you dig deep enough, you will find water. And I want to add to that that it's fun to dig with shovels with people who you like and who are nice to you instead of being alone and digging with a bulldozer. So Brandeis is that place for me. We all have shovels and we are all digging. And here we have a picture of all the people that work in the soft matter physics. And there are all the friends and colleagues on PhDs, postdocs. Here you have Anahita. This is my PI, Aparna, whom I work with. And I am working on this another cool experiment about this material. It's a microscopic material which is made out of proteins brought out of cells, and they move and flow in this funky ways on their own. And I try to do some simulations and theory on understanding these materials. So I want to go back to the picture that I had on my first slide of this tree that I like a lot. This tree signifies to me the branches are like the multiple paths that we take in life. And it's only when you put them all together that you have a beautiful tree. There are many things that I can say more about my scientific journey, but I want to conclude with these few things. I like science because I think it is an endeavor that builds bridges. This is why today I am here talking to you, coming from a different country and different culture, but sharing science with you. The another thing I feel is that there's place for every unique perspective, and the more diverse and unique the perspective would be, the more we'll understand the world. So that's great. And there's beauty everywhere if you look. And if you find something that's beautiful to you, you can understand it. Finally, I think the pursuit of knowledge is above any and all authority in science. It does not matter if you're a Nobel laureate or if you're a high school student. If you are right, you are right. And finally, when I realized I was taking too long to make this presentation and I was complaining to my girlfriend, she told me this, that if you're doing something that you love, don't worry about how long it takes for you to figure it out. And that's the main message that I have for myself and for you, that sometimes it might take long to figure out what you want to do. But if you know that you love it and it's something that is surrounded with nice and supportive people, it's fine if it's going to take long. With that, I want to thank you all, and I'll take any questions.